Why would you ever have kids? They are expensive, noisy, they take up your time, and you could be doing drugs all day long like Seth Rogen instead. Guys, welcome to the channel, and in this case, talking about the topic of family. Yes, that's what kids are. If you don't have kids, it's a couple people living together, but really it's not the same thing. And that's unfortunately something that a lot of couples have to go through because biology, age, a number of other factors, and also very much true. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I perfectly understand how expensive it is these days, but it's expensive because that's part of the plan. The idea is to make it difficult for you to have kids, make it difficult for you to form a family, to have that tribe that makes you stronger, and at the end of the day, all of us be easier to manipulate for what's more convenient for those in power. But let's listen to what Seth Rogen has to say. I know that a lot of people have a very strong view about Seth Rogen. He actually says a couple of things very interesting that I think are worth listening to. Not in this case. I couldn't disagree with more with everything he says here. But anyway, let's go for it.
Looking to the future years, you've been open about not wanting kids. So is this
Yes.
still a thing? Okay,
I
you
still
said
do
hard
know, I
yes.
still don't want kids, yeah.
Why? Why? Like you just never saw yourself as down. You just like your time.
It doesn't seem that fun.
I can see how it seems that way.
Yeah, it really does not, it doesn't seem fun. And most of my friends...
I don't know what's more fun. I mean, you play with your kids. You have fun with them. You have similar interests. You fight with your kids when they're very little and when they're being older and when when you cannot beat them anymore. That's also, it's part of life. But man, it's the most fun I've ever had. But I understand that people have different views of what fun may or may not be. I've never done drugs in my life. Never, not once. I could not care less about it. And it's obviously something that is very important for Seth Rogen. I think he's 41 years old. He's really not looking all that great. Not having kids has not been exactly all that beneficial, at least on the exterior, I guess.
Who are parents, God bless them, spend a lot of their time talking about how much they don't like having kids.
Who the fuck does that? What kind of people is Seth Rogen hanging out with that they say they don't like their own kids? I don't know anyone. Never, ever in my life, having lived in different countries, taking my kids to different schools, having a fucking laundry list of little kid birthdays. I have 3 kids. I've been to a number of those. Never in my life have I come across a sane human being that said, you know what I really hate? My kids. It's kind of the thing that you don't hear people that are not crazy say. I mean, I guess there could be some people that think that way. I mean, there's horrible monsters in the world that do all sorts of horrible things. So it wouldn't be, unthinkable. I guess there's people, but most people are gonna tell you that's the most important thing they have in their life, their kids, their families.
And what me and my wife spend a lot of time talking about is how much fun stuff we can do because we don't have kids.
I think that that's actually pretty rad though, because I never wanted kids like whenever.
So the fat lady here, she has kids, and although she laughs, but going back to what he said about him and his wife, I'm not. If someone is set about, I really don't want to have kids, don't have fucking kids. I think that's fairly obvious. If a woman says, I don't want to have kids, that's not me. And there's some very specific people that are very smart, that are very nice people, and will tell you, no, I just don't see. And once you get to meet them, and you see it, yes, it's definitely not for you. The personality, it does require dedication, especially being a good parent. Being a shitty parent, being just a matter of the biological act of procreation, that's simple enough. Even though it's getting a lot harder as time goes by, fertility keeps dropping for both men and women. Find it increasingly more difficult to have children. It's something either because of pollution, microplastics, radio, Wi-Fi, whatever the hell is, fertility is going down steadily year after year. But we are still looking at this being a personal decision. You cannot force. In the same way, you should never force people into not having kids. You cannot force people into having them. And it's often the case that, how many times have we seen people that, you know what, you should not have had kids, or even more so, you don't deserve the kids that you have. Maybe that's a more common thing. But let's keep on listening.
I never wanted kids before I met my ex. And
before I met my ex. That is so, lady, you keep on checking those boxes, of course.
He had kids, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I was like, and I got to kind of experience it.
That seems like a good version of it.
So then I ended up having kids because I wouldn't say it's like the most fun job because it's like overwhelming, but it's a beautiful thing, and it's like nothing cooler for me. But I will say though, I think it's important because people always used to pressure me about it, about marriage and about having kids, and like it's like that's not everybody's dream is to do that.
And a lot of people,
I just think it's important you say that.
Again, all joking aside, if the guy does not want to have kids, he just doesn't want to have kids. That's all there is to it. But you cannot avoid noticing how there's an agenda. We keep on seeing all of these hit pieces, all of these editorials about child-free women. No, lady, you're barren. You're not child-free. Childless couples. No, you're child-free now. As if having a child is some form of slavery or it's quite obvious, and there's more and more conversations like these going on, and they even articles from like The Economist. I've covered this before in the channel. There's so many having children will not ensure that you're happy. Yes, it will fucking ensure you are for the great majority of living creatures, including human beings. It is what you're supposed to do. Apart from whatever personal decision each one of us ends up making, that's what it means to be alive. When you're alive, you're born, you reproduce, and you die. The three things that every living being has in common. If you don't fulfill that, it really takes away in an important manner what it means to be alive. And again, as thinking beings that we are, people make their own decisions. In general, most people want to have kids. And in general, this is something that I heard no other than Larry Elder, which is a pretty fucking smart guy, say in his 70 years old, I think he's right now, his greatest regret is not having kids. And you're not talking about Seth Rogen, which, again, I like the guy. I mean, shoot me for it, but I think the guy is at times quite funny, and some of the things he said about a certain community that he's scared of was quite enlightening, which I suggest you look it up. So he's not an idiot. Maybe you don't agree with everything, and maybe he's not likable for everyone, but he's not an idiot. So him not liking or wanting to have kids, but Larry Elder, 70 years old, he said, I regret it. I now regret it. When I'm 70, I regret it. And you know what? Most people regret it too. And there's a strong case for those that, when they reach that age, say they don't regret it. They're just maybe lying to you, and more importantly, lying to themselves. But I want to end with this last little bit that he says, which is simply not correct. This simply is not true. It's not a matter of personal opinion. It's simply not true.
Yeah, a lot of people have kids and they don't even think about it. I know.
Oh my God, we call those people that have accessories.
Yeah, or they just think that's the next thing you do in life.
I know, that's what I'm
and then they look back and they were like, I didn't have to have kids.
No, my friend was like, that's a person that has a kid as an accessory. And I'm like, that's a lot of therapy in the waiting. But anyway.
Yeah, but you don't need kids. There's so many kids.
I know, and that's the thing too,
Who looks at all the kids out there and thinks, I wish there were more kids?
Yeah. No, that's simply not true, incorrect, false, and it's not accidental. That's a narrative, the idea of overpopulation. There's just too many kids. No, there's not. No, it's actually the opposite. We don't have enough kids. So, and this is something that I heard Rogan say in other videos, in other interviews. They say, oh, there's too many kids. And you see a lot of people. You see a lot of what you would have thought were smart people. I mean, not Larry Elder. I think he's not that, he's smarter than that, but that's something that's repeated still often. in spite of knowing perfectly well that it's not true, that we're hitting below sustained fertility rates. We're below the 2.1 sustained rate that we need just to not have humans go extinct. That's the level in which we are now. It's not an opinion of mine, it's a fucking fact. If you cannot replace the existing population, you will just go extinct, you will disappear. And that's where we're heading to. And it's not a joke, it's very serious. There's no, you know why? Because it's so difficult to convince people that don't want to have kids to have kids. First, it's morally wrong to force someone that doesn't want to have kids to have them. It's fucked up to even suggest doing that. In the same way, it's fucked up to not allow them to have them when they used to want to have kids. But this idea that there's just too many kids around, that's not true. It's incorrect, it's false, and it's part of the globalist agenda of you not having kids, not owning property, being poor, being easy to manipulate, eliminate that toxic masculinity that we have to get rid of, and basically being a sheep for the New World Order, right? That's basically what it comes down to. But it's not correct. No, there's not too many kids. We are actually missing kids. We don't have enough kids to sustain the number of people in this world, and a lot of people think, oh, that's great, we're overpopulated, we could cut the population by half. It doesn't work that way. When you don't have kids anymore, what starts happening is that you start going extinct little by little, and it's not gonna be like cutting it in half. No, you start getting fucking older. You start seeing more Seth Rogens around and less young people. And the older people you have keeps growing in number as the population then starts shrinking. And then when you're about to go completely extinct, you have a massive number of old, frail people that cannot look after themselves. Then you have a very tiny number of young people that can do those hard jobs that older people cannot do anymore. You don't have to wait until humanity loses 10-20% of the global population. By that time, we are already beyond fucked because of the aging population that cannot sustain itself. We are already seeing this impact the economy as of right this fucking moment. Okay, guys? So, be smart about it. Make your own decisions. But I want to end with this. You're not in a moral high ground for not having kids. It's actually the opposite. If you want to contribute to humanity, to the better of the world being better of a place, have kids and be a good fucking parent. No, it's not all that easy. Sometimes it's quite hard, but it's very rewarding. It's something that brings a lot of happiness as well. People that don't think like that and just are not made that way, sure, don't have them. But it is not the natural thing. It's not the moral right thing to do. And you're certainly not making the world better by us going extinct. Okay? See you next time. Take care.